Hey everyone, thank you for joining me for another Wow Me Wednesday. Today I have a special guest, as you can see, my good friend Marian Kaanon, who we're so lucky to have with us today because she is one of the most powerful and eloquent speakers I have ever seen and heard, obviously.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
The way she connects with an audience makes them laugh, makes them cry. I mean, it's like hardly anyone else I've ever seen. So it's really, really amazing to have you.
Okay. First of all, best way to start. Thank you.
So I feel really honored that you're here.
Thank you. I'm honored that you would ask me to do this. So thank you.
So as I said, she is very powerful, very eloquent. You give presentations and speeches 2 to 3 times a month, you'd say, right?
Yeah, from groups ranging from 10 people to over 100. Depending on the engagement. And usually I'm talking about my work life and what we're doing at the Stanislaus Community Foundation. A lot of times also I'm talking about personal lessons and leadership and things that this community is thinking about and grappling with. So it tends to run the gamut of issues too, from professional to civic and community to personal life lessons and leadership.
A variety of audiences and topics.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare for your presentations?
Yeah. So I always ask the person that's making the request of me to come speak, what's the intent? Who's in the audience? You know, what are they expecting? How much time do I have? So there's some logistical things. Are there handouts? Do I need to prepare a PowerPoint presentation? So there's a lot of sort of obviously logistical things, but really what is the audience seeking to know more about as a result of my presentation? That's super helpful.
What's in it for the audience?
Exactly.
Always, right?
Yeah, and who's in the audience, you know, and what are their expectations? And so that helps, and obviously timing and how much time I have and whether I can use slides. So that's sort of going into it. When I'm there and about to begin my talk, well, first of all, preparing for the talk, I do tend to think of my talks in 3 to 5 points. So, you know, what are the top 3 things, or what are the top 5 things, or what are the 5 lessons, or what are the 3 key nuggets of wisdom? Or so I tend to structure my talks around, and for some reason it's always an odd number. It's always 3 or 5, and that is sort of the scaffolding for my presentation, sort of the architecture, and then I build in underneath that supporting points. But I tend to stick to those 3 to 5 things. And I always tell my audience that what I'm going to be talking about. So I don't just sort of rely on the person introducing me, or rely on the program agenda, or what's written in front of them, or rely on my PowerPoints. I actually verbally say, during my presentation today, these are the 3 things I'm going to talk about, or these are the 5 things I'd like to discuss with you.
Right.
So I tend to give them an overview of what to expect. Which, especially when there's no PowerPoint, is super helpful for them to orient around. Oh, okay, she's going to talk about these 3 things.
Exactly. It's like setting expectations early on, and also making yourself accountable.
Absolutely.
Putting it out there to the audience to make sure that you touch upon these topics.
And then when I'm preparing my presentation, I don't overwrite the talk. You and I have talked about that in the past when, like, I sometimes have written word for word what I want to talk about, and it always comes off as very rehearsed, or I mean, I might as well just send them that what I've written and they could read it. But a lot of it is also being in the moment. And so if I have 3 to 5 things I want to talk about, and they're general buckets, and I've organized some of the key points to support those 3 to 5 things, that's sort of the scaffolding of my talk. But then it allows me to be free in the moment to really extrapolate and have it be conversational, which over time is what I found audiences tend to really be impacted by, and really it resonates with them when I'm in the moment and sort of riffing on something. Also, there's an energy to each audience, so I can see when people's when people's heads are nodding, or when they're or you know, when they're distracted or starting to check their phones. I know I've got to do something to change up the energy. And if I'm following like this carefully scripted thing, I've lost them.
Right.
Versus, okay, the energy of this room is kind of interesting. It's somber, or it's distracted, or wow, they're super engaged, or there's people leaning in. I mean, you could just read the body language of the room, and the energy of the room informs. I sort of reflect back to them what I'm seeing. Does that make sense? And so you know, if there's Q&A and it's sort of informal, then obviously I'm going to change up the tempo of what I'm saying and pause and ask if there's questions.
Right.
So I very much try to also, because I organize it in sort of with a scaffolding approach, 3 to 5 things, some key subpoints, and then I go into it and I'm in the moment and fluid versus being overly rehearsed. I'm sort of reading the energy of the room, and it makes for a more fluid presentation, like much more attuned to their needs and where they're at.
Right. And you're basically gauging what the audience needs and is looking for in that moment. And what I've noticed about your presentations that I love is that you are so real. You're candid, even if it means being vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Which is hard for a lot of us. It's hard to
So hard. Not recommended. No, I'm kidding.
Only when you're comfortable.
Right,
with it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Marianne's very comfortable with
Thank you.
saying how she feels and saying what's on her mind. And I think that is really what connects you with your audience, no matter who they are.
And it's interesting you bring that up. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I feel like as time goes on, people are very savvy, and they're very savvy consumers of information, increasingly so. And they know the truth. They know when someone's being authentic and inauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
I think people increasingly, as time go on, have very little tolerance for sort of canned presentations,
Spiels, pitches.
They know it. Don't
Yeah.
you feel it? Like, you know when you're being sold something,
Yeah.
when the truth isn't being said. Increasing more than ever before. You have less sort of like, when you hear a canned speech, I tune those things out. You know, whether it's on TV or on social media, like, you know when something is produced and orchestrated versus fluid and coming from a deeper place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think audiences and people are just becoming much more savvy and have lower tolerance for sort of staged things.
Mm-hmm.
They want real. They want vulnerability. Maybe
Yep.
not like all the time, everything, but they want certainly their leaders to express their humanity. And I think the way we express our humanity is through shared story. It's through sense making. It's through, with vulnerability. I mean, I've stood up in front of audience and said, I don't know the answer. I don't know. I'm not here to like be the sage on the stage. I'm here to express that, yeah, me too. I'm vulnerable. I don't know all the answers. Here's our thinking around these topics. Here's what we're working towards. Here's some ways you may want to work towards these things. Here's some ideas for you that you take in. But I never come from a place of, because I'm on the stage, I know everything.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I've been able to be authentic, is to sort of be myself. And I think too, people connect with that. There's that shared humanity. And so for me, a big piece too is storytelling, and sort of telling stories that disarm audiences and sort of get them to lean in and see themselves in that story.
Yeah.
I love analogies. I love quotes.
Mm-hmm.
I love little bits of poetry. I think there's just so many inspirational things out there that you can take and weave into your talk. It's not just your words.
Exactly.
And so all of that for me is sort of part of this connecting with the audience and being your authentic self. I think people really are asking for it. There's a real hunger these days for authenticity.
I think so too, and especially when you're talking about leadership and the qualities we look for in our leaders. And so often many leaders let their egos get in the way and want to come off like they know everything, have all the answers, so that you can have confidence in them, right? But I think, like you were insinuating, more important now is the fact that we realize that we are together.
Absolutely, we're co-creating.
We are all humans. We're all part of humanity, and that not one of us knows all the answers.
No.
And so by you admitting sometimes, I don't know, but let's work on this together.
Right.
I think that drops your guard,
Absolutely.
drops their guard, and then allows you to really connect.
Totally. Yeah, I find that people are never discount their own native intelligence around things, right? And they know what truth feels like. They know what audiences more and more. It resonates with them when you're telling the truth, even if the truth is, I don't know the answer. Mm-hmm. Here's some ways we're moving forward. I mean, I think they appreciate that. Like, wow, I'm not being sold something. I'm not being told something. I'm being invited into a deeper dialogue. Even if this person's on the stage, I'm sitting in the audience. Some of the most powerful speakers that I've come across in my own career and some of the people I've worked for are people that when they speak, they come from a place of deep emotion. And not that they're crying or what have you, but you can feel that what they're talking about comes from a place really deep inside them. And it's not sort of, again, canned or rehearsed, and it's not a recitation of factoids or facts, but that this is, they're moving from a deeper place in their being. And that's where this talk is coming from, this presentation. Mm-hmm. So I've just been really lucky to be aware of that. And I think for your audience, like listen carefully when you're hearing presentations or you're, engaging in social media, and what resonates with you.
Yeah.
What type of style resonates with you? What really moves you? Because at the end of the day, don't you want your presentations to be like moving people along?
Right.
And that they are somewhat changed as a result of, the talk you just gave. Because they gave you their time, which is a precious commodity. And, if they can move away transformed, that would be cool.
Yeah, that is the end goal.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're so wise.
Oh, dude, please. The other thing I found increasingly, one of the things we talk about in preparing like the day of or as you're about to go on, I always now take a deep breath, center myself, focus on my breathing, and I let go of, so I prepare, we talked about 3 to 5 bullet points, sub points, have it written out, not word for word, but kind of know where you're going. When you start your talk, you give an overview, you read the energy of the room, but literally the moment before I go on, I take a deep centering breath and I try very hard to root myself in my body, in the present moment. I don't let my mind kind of get, even if it's feeling anxious, whatever, I just sort of focus inwardly. And okay, I'm going to be in the moment now.
Yeah.
I'm prepared. I trust that I'm prepared. I have faith that the words that are going to come out of my mouth are the right words for this particular audience. And then I go up and I kind of clear my head of anything. And I have my points, and then I just kind of dive in.
It's a good way. The 3 bullet points is a good way for you, those of you who want to try to wean yourself off your notes.
Yes.
To try to remember the overarching theme.
Yep.
And then, like
Think
you
of it
said,
as
the scaffolding.
Yeah.
To guide you along through the sub-themes
Right.
of your presentation.
Yeah.
Do you still get nervous?
I do, yeah, sometimes. I really enjoy public speaking. So I'm one of those people that I love that space that's created. And I do feel like it's a kind of a cool space to be in. I love that people trust me to be up somewhere talking at a podium or on stage. That's a privilege and an honor that I don't carry lightly. I enjoy it. I will tell you, so I do still get anxiety. I will tell you, interesting that's changed in the last year for me is, especially because I have become a little more vulnerable and authentic and truthier in what I'm talking about. But I now find that after I make a talk, no matter what size, to whom, what the topic is about, I have to have a decompression afterwards where I get quiet, whether it's just in my car on the way back to the office or if it's an evening event. I don't stay usually at the event and hang out. I go home and I don't turn on my TV, social media. I kind of have to recharge my batteries. So it depends again on the size. If it's bigger, I'd have to do more of that. Or if it's a longer engagement. But even with short, like 15-minute presentations, and I'm getting back in the car to go, I don't turn on the music. I kind of have to wind down a little bit because there is a rush you feel, whether it's anxiety or what have you.
Adrenaline.
Yeah. And it's like if you continue and you've just given something, it's like a withdrawal has been made.
A piece of you.
Exactly. And so I have to kind of go back and be like, kind of, ooh, like all engines get, kind of turned down a little bit. Even if it's for 10 minutes in the car on the way back to the office. Right. I don't just go from that to checking my phone, turning on the music. I kind of have to decompress a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like working out where you have to warm
down.
Up your body, and then you got to cool down too.
Yes.
You got to do that for your mind and for your heart.
Yeah.
Because we're divulging
and
so much of yourself.
And you want to reflect on what you just said. So, I feel like this is a continuous process and so of improvement too. And if we're going to be people that speak often, what was it? How did that go? I always ask myself, did I impart what I needed to impart? What was the audience like? Could I have said this differently? So I do reflect on that too for future, okay, Marian, what did you learn about this particular interaction? Okay, sometimes if someone asks a question, it's very pointed, I get reactionary. So I think to myself, okay, what in that engagement, that person's question caused you to sort of, get a little heartbeat. So sometimes I feel like I get strident, like I get so passionate about what I'm talking about that even you don't want to be so overwhelming, people with your this is the way to go or this is how to do things. And again, it comes to, I don't know all the answers. This is one way. Yeah. But because I'm such an emotive person and talk with my hands and, all that, sometimes that may not work for everybody.
Right.
So I still want to be true to myself and my own particular way of talking and speaking. But I also have to reflect, okay, how did that go? And not everything's going to be a slam dunk for everybody.
Exactly. But that's the only way we're going to improve.
Absolutely.
Right, is to reflect and to analyze for ourselves
Yeah.
how our performance or presentation was. Yeah.
And commit to improvement and reflection.
Right.
You know.
Thank you so much for
gosh,
your
thank
wisdom.
you. Oh,
That was so
you're the
helpful.
best.
I learned so
you.
much even within this short amount of time.
Thank you
So I hope you all did too. And if you would like any more tips, please check out my website, sign up for my email list, jessicachangconsulting.com, to get much more wisdom like this. I'll see you next time.